There is no end in sight for the shutdown of the Department of Homeland Security as Democrats and Republicans continue to fight over immigration enforcement policy. Democrats are demanding changes to enforcement tactics that Republicans largely oppose. Here to discuss, Sadiq Shakochi, staff writer here at The Hill. Hey, Sadiq. So we've had Democrats in the White House kind of going back and forth on offers and counter offers. What is the latest?
Yeah, so the latest is that Democrats had actually sent an counter offer back to the White House this morning. A Schumer spokesperson had confirmed, and it looks like Democrats are very keen on, making sure that warrant requirements are tightened, that face coverings are taken off, that they're ending roving patrols. These are all things that Democrats are really hoping for that Republicans don't seem to be budging on. The White House doesn't seem to be budging on. So we'll see what happens with the latest offer. I will say that White House has given some counter proposals to Democrats, and Democrats in both parties, in both chambers, have said that their offer is not good enough. It falls short. It's not sufficient enough. And so we will see how Democrats' offer will be taken by the White House.
Tell me about the sentiment inside the Democratic Party as they withhold their votes here. How much pressure is there to hold the line and continue to demand these changes?
There is a lot of pressure. Voters have been clamoring for Democrats to do as much as they can to fight back against the Trump administration. And Democrats are in the minority party, so they don't really have a lot of tools or, resources to be able to fight back against the Trump administration in a trifecta. And so this is kind of their best shot of, making sure that they're able to get their demands across the table and work with the White House, especially on a hot topic like immigration, which is something that Democrats have been trying to, bring forth demands on and bring forth their own party values on. And so I think that this is a major turning point for Democrats. This is something that they, are really looking forward to be able to make change in the Trump administration, fight back against the Trump administration. And this is something that, they feel very pressured to do with voters, especially as the 2026 midterms are coming up.
Is there acknowledgement among Democrats that their leverage might be limited by the fact that the One Big Beautiful Bill that was passed last year funneled hundreds of millions of dollars to ICE and Border Patrol, and those are the agencies within DHS that Democrats are trying to rein in?
Yeah, so Democrats are trying to rein in and, as they describe it, overhaul ICE and CBP. Some moderate Democrats have acknowledged that, ICE has been funded by Trump's big, beautiful bill that was signed into law last year. And so a lot of the millions of dollars that ICE has right now, it's being funneled by the OBB. And so right now, there is some acknowledgement within moderate Democrats that, ICE is being funded and a shutdown really won't do anything to impact ICE. But House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, they're very keen on ensuring that, ICE is reined in and overhauled. And it does seem like that's one of their main priorities. So even though ICE has, millions of dollars are being funneled by Trump's big, beautiful bill to ICE, it doesn't stop from the fact that, the House Minority Leader, the Senate Minority Leader in the Democratic Party, they're both clamoring to make sure that ICE is reined in and overhauled, and that's one of their biggest demands yet for the White House.
What about over on the Republican side? There has seemed to be some kind of broad acknowledgement that the tactics of immigration enforcement were maybe overly aggressive. Do Republicans feel any pressure to support changes to make enforcement more palatable to Americans?
Yeah, there is some pressure, especially among vulnerable Republicans who are running in tight districts. With the midterms coming up, the agent shooting the two U.S. citizens in Minnesota left a very bad mark on the Trump administration, on Republicans. The deaths of Alex Preddy and Renee Good were something that really shook the political sphere. And so a lot of vulnerable Republicans do feel pressured to make changes. And some of them have been open to some of the Democratic demands. For instance, they've been open to the increased use of body cameras, de-escalation tactics. These are something that vulnerable Republicans have been open to, especially since, they're going to have to appeal to a wide, broad electorate after it when they're running in the 2026 midterms. And with these recent shootings, they're trying everything they can do to ensure that they're able to, get some of these democratic demands, support some of these demands, but also make sure that they're supporting what the agenda of the Trump administration is. And so I would say there is, some pressure, there is some agreement among some Republicans to try to get some of the democratic demands across, especially the body cameras, but also the de-escalation tactics that Democrats have demanded.
Considering that this is only a partial shutdown and all the funding DHS got in the One Big Beautiful Bill that we talked about last year, how will the impacts of this shutdown be felt by everyday Americans?
Yeah, so Congress so far has passed 11 out of the 12 appropriations bills needed to fund the government. The DHS bill was really the last bill that they needed to pass. And obviously, there's been no deal yet on that from the White House and Democrats. The shutdown will impact a lot of, TSA agents, FEMA officials, Coast Guard, Secret Service, those agencies that really rely on the funding from the bill to be able to move forward. The next paycheck that TSA, FEMA, those employees have is February 27th. And because the vast majority of DHS employees are essential, if they don't come up with a deal before February 27th, they will be working without pay. And so this shutdown will impact a lot of the TSA agents, FEMA officials, and those sorts of officials that are working in agencies under DHS. But the majority of the government is funded. And so I do want to add that this shutdown mainly just impacts those officials who do still have to go to work, who are still considered essential. But if they don't get paid on February 27th because we're still in a shutdown, a partial shutdown, then it will impact them the most.
Difficult situation for those workers, especially considering there was a shutdown just late last year that impacted many of them during that time. So it's a story we'll continue to follow, but for now, we'll leave it at that. Sadiq Shakoshi, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you so much for having me.